But I was in Hong Kong when it happened. I was in Hong Kong on June 4th when Tiananmen happened.
Yeah.
Quite a few of our folks decided not to go in. You trained in Hong Kong and then went to Guangzhou and then you spread out across the country. I was in southern China in Guangdong, and but crossing over in Hong Kong, there was a lot of European in Hong Kong. Don't do this, don't go, don't support them in this. And my thinking at the time was what a golden opportunity to go tell how it was, and I did have a lot of freedom to do that.
Do not come.
I'm gonna go.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to TrueAnon's coverage of the 2024 presidential election.
Vote true no matter who.
Vote true no matter who. Now, Liz, up until this point, many of our listeners, in fact, mea culpa, both the hosts here, we were under the impression that it was just Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Last night completely disabused us of that notion. There are two other people running alongside. Have you heard about this?
It's crazy, right?
Let's introduce ourselves first. My name is Brace.
I'm Liz. We are, of course, joined by
Producer Young Chomsky.
And we are fresh off last night's fucking snooze fest of a vice presidential debate.
I mean, to be fair, it's a bit redundant, snooze fest and vice presidential debate. We knew what we were getting ourselves into. This was like for pure sickos only. This is sicko mode. People watching this, if you're watching this like us, and we are sickos, you're a sicko.
Yeah, and I understand that they don't allow crowds in the regular presidential debate anymore,
Boo.
which is absurd.
Boo.
But would anyone have even showed up last night to be in the crowd for this? I mean, you've got these two old jokers there. Well, Vance not so old, but you've got these two jokers there, jibber jabbering away at each other.
He's his own kind of joker.
It felt both like the kids' table and the room that you put your demented great-grandmother in during Thanksgiving combined into one. Give me a break.
Yeah, it's kind of like the I don't know, like second rate. It's like kind of like it's the vice presidential debate. You know what I mean? It's like, where we can all remember where we were when Mike Pence debated Tim Kaine. I fucking forgot Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine.
Kaine with the man Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine in the membrane. Tim Kaine in the brain.
Unfortunately, I do think that, there is a future where Tim Walz goes the same direction as Tim Kaine and we kind of forget who he is.
He kills himself?
Wait, Tim Kaine didn't kill himself.
Tim Kaine killed himself a couple of years after the election.
It.
No, I'm okay, fine. Well, his daughter listens to the show, so she'll be glad to know that her dad's still alive. I have to say, I have never watched a vice presidential debate before, and frankly, I hope to never watch one again. Certainly there will not be another one this election cycle. I do remember the fly landing on Mike Pence's head, but I just remember that because I saw videos of it after the fact.
I think I got all of that second wave.
Because I can't remember anything that he said. He was a weird one, huh?
Yeah, you think?
What was up with that guy? Mother?
Yeah.
God, well, that would appeal to the Kamala Harris's brat crowd, wouldn't it?
Oh,
but he's calling his wife mother. Is that what he's doing?
There's a lot of weird stuff going on in there.
And they're fucking?
I don't know.
No, you know what? People throw that around a lot, but I would agree with that. I don't know if they're fucking.
I definitely think that he slept in full-time sleepy gown dress with full nightcap.
Yeah.
That was very extended, but his dressing gown, to be uber conservative, also at the bottom, it was gown-like, but then went into little feeties.
Yeah.
So it's extreme drop crotch dress style, but then with little footsies attached on the bottom.
Oh, he's head to toe flannel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I could picture him sleeping in sort of like a twin bed next to his wife's twin bed situation.
Yeah, he's putting himself in a sleep sack every night.
What's his wife look like? She's got to be
not looking that
crazy looking.
So, but let's talk about this year's debate. I do think that, as you point out, vice presidential debates, I do think in the long run, which isn't that long from now, considering we're just literally almost 30 days from the election. They're pretty inconsequential. Like, it's funny, there was all these like rapid fire like CNN polls afterwards, and people like dropping stuff that were just like didn't really move the needle that much, which is fucking crazy considering how disparate the performances were, which we'll talk about. I do think that it was consequential for JD Vance's career, which maybe we can get to a little bit later. But I do think that he basically saved his career last night from the depths of the like terrible failure to launch that he had early on in this campaign.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think in both cases, I think Tim Walz kind of nosedived in terms of what we've come to expect from him, which is like, this goofy guy who's going on TV and kind of talking shit or, whatever. Like, I'm just a hapless white guy for Harris kind of routine that he does.
Yeah.
His Midwestern whiteface act. And Vance, I thought, did really good. My advice for Vance has always been actually to try to lean into the evil thing as much as possible.
Interesting.
And he went away from that towards trying to seem like a normal guy, which I thought was an interesting move, and I think he pulled it off.
I do think that there was something kind of vaguely non-binary about him last night.
I think in another life,
like he was looking a little femme.
I think in another life, JD Vance would be a writer for N+1, if you know what I mean.
Well, he was a blogger.
Exactly.
And this is something to talk about. I mean, JD Vance is very much, he's like the most millennial I've seen. We haven't seen a like millennial politician on the big stage yet, except for AOC, right? But even that is like small potatoes compared to the vice presidential debate, but the actual presidential ticket. And listen, the man's a blogger, right?
Yeah.
The man's like, he has a scandal having to do with his DMs, right? Shout out Kevin. He's got he's up there with a hot pink tie, which threw me completely. And I was like, is that really what's going on? And then by the end, completely taken. The man knows his colors. It popped the blue eyes. It was surprising.
Possibly the influence of Usha with that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a millennial through and through. He's a code switcher, which actually means he's a liar. But he's a liar who knows how to pander really well. And he knows his angles. He's like preparing himself to be like memeified and doing his like little coy like fascist Jim from The Office thing. Like he's, you know what I mean? He's like a total millennial superstar in that way. And I say that with like, that doesn't make me feel good. I hate this man. Like he terrifies me.
I think that Vance, I think the code switching thing is, I really picked up on that last night because in all of like the clips that have come out on Vance, listen, JD Vance is the kind of guy who's going to go on Amy Teresa's podcast. There is no two ways to put that. He already did. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's the kind of joker we're dealing with here. And when he's on that kind of bullshit, he can be like, yeah, fucking, they should staple gun these pussies shut, or maybe we should hand out a speculum to every male student, whatever. He's like talking weird shit about pussies. But then when he gets on stage, this is a guy who has been, in rarefied environments for much of his adult life. He's been surrounded by libtards. He knows how to deal with them. And that's what he was doing last night. Just like you have Kamala Harris going to Atlanta and maybe speaking in a different voice than she might otherwise use. You have JD Vance getting on stage and being like kind of a acceptable conservative to the liberal audience.
Yeah. And I think that is like it was crazy because afterwards I saw people tweeting that I hadn't seen in a while, like Republican, like extreme right, kind of like, I don't know what you call them, theorists or whatever, like being like, oh, now you see the future of the Republican Party or whatever they're saying, like kind of everyone coming out of the woodwork to praise him because they could see like, oh, here's those Heritage Foundation bona fides that we knew we paid for. And this is the guy that we knew was there all along. And when Vance didn't have to like when he was able to untether himself from Trump, he did really well.
Yeah.
And so you could see like in real time the future of the Republican Party, and like that he does look like that future, which is like very, 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 very dark. And like he did look like he was like announcing himself as the presumptive 2028 nominee in the way that he was like speaking and taking questions. But when it came to dealing with the Trump stuff, he like didn't know what to do.
Yeah, one gets the impression that he is sort of in a bind with that because, like, it's obvious. Listen, JD Vance is like a worm, but you know that, like, in his heart of hearts, he probably does not like Donald Trump. He probably thinks he's a fucking idiot. Like, there is just simply no way that a guy who has like gone through that much elite education, who's like that, who sort of like hangs out with this like rarefied intellectual crowd that he says that he hangs out with, is actually like views Trump as like a normal person who is like, he genuinely likes him. Like, I think that he is nothing but, I mean, his entire career has shown us he is nothing but an opportunist. And so in some way, I do like the fact that he has to answer for a lot of Trump's crazy shit.
Fuck yeah.
Because he seems very uncomfortable doing it. Last night, Waltz's best moment of the debate, I think, is when he asked JD Vance, like, do you think that Trump lost the election? Like, and then I think he asked him another question about January 6th. And Vance, like, obviously, I would bet the fucking farm that JD Vance was talking shit to some fucking 200 follower Twitter account called like Groyper Raper Hitler in 2020. Actually, he wouldn't be talking to Groyper Raper Hitler about this. He'd be talking to some guy like that he thinks is like his intellectual equal, but perhaps of a different political persuasion.
He did that.
Exactly.
We got the DMs for that.
And you know, I guarantee that's not the only one he was sending it to. I guarantee he was sending it to all kinds of guys. Pause. But I guarantee that he probably thought that Trump lost the election and that he was besmirching or what do you call it? He was taking a shit on our democracy by doing January 6th. Changes his tune. It's very obvious that he's like doing all this bullshit now. And I think that he can weather the degradation that he's putting himself through. I think that he is the kind of person who is just like make Sammy or what makes Sammy run or whatever the fuck that book's called, doing that kind of shit. But I hope that it hurts him in some way. I know he feels like a fucking fraud.
Yeah, I feel like it's funny because just as you're saying this, like I completely agree. And I think that Vance is like an actual like, you know, realpolitik, like political realist. Like that is just like his beliefs, his actual like core politics are extremely flexible in that he's just kind of like using whatever is at his disposal to obtain power and then do what he wants with it or not or whatever. And in that way, he like, it's funny, like he's he's similar in a lot of ways to Kamala, where like you don't actually really know what she thinks or what she kind of believes. You have a general kind of outline of how she's carried herself through her career and the way she's kind of like situated herself with different people, how she's come up through the different like political machines and the kind of associations she has with like, especially in Silicon Valley and like corporate Dem California politics. But like, she also has to answer and her hands are like, you know, she's tied to like Biden in a lot of ways that make the campaign difficult. Vance is tied to Trump in ways that make his career aspirations difficult. And they're both sort of like trying to dance around these things as they're trying to explain away if they actually believe something or not. And no one can really nail them on either of it. You know, like you could see like it looked like Vance's hands were literally tied behind his back when he was talking about Trump. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He seemed visibly uncomfortable, and he gets testy when he feels uncomfortable, which is, I think, a sign of weakness in the general spirit. But it's you know, I think about Vance and guys like Moldbug or like, you know, these sort of like intellectual, like far right, whatever the fuck they want to call themselves, kind of guys, and like. The contempt that they have for like regular people is plain. Like Moldbug's whole thing is like he's an elitist or whatever, and like, you know, the way he like that Hobbits bullshit. It's like the way that they think of like normal people as like this other that they have to like have a stewardship over. Now, a lot of politicians act like that, but they sort of do it because that's what politicians do. I don't think it's as like intellectually thought out as that. Where like Vance, I think it comes from a weird place because I think he does come from regular people, as he will not stop fucking reminding us. In fact, as both of these fucking Midwestern goofballs wouldn't shut the fuck up about. I don't need to hear your fucking life story every time someone asks you about immigration, brother. But he it must be funny because Vance is sort of like torn between two worlds, where he seems to be like all of these intellectual smart guy nerd motherfuckers think that they can use a guy like Trump and which means use Trump's base to like enact this grand right wing project that they have. The reality is like most of those normal people and Trump himself would actually hold these people in contempt if they weren't politically useful for him, or if he even thinks about them at all. And I think Vance is in this funny place where he's almost like the bridge between these kind of people and Trump, and he's sort of torn between two worlds. I would imagine that he cuts.
Like which version of cutting?
Like he cuts small nicks on his thighs in order to feel emotion.
He does have a kind of like My Chemical Romance thing going on.
And that's what I'm saying. He's got
he's a millennial, so he's emo.
He's got the demeanor of a cutter.
He definitely is cutting something because I think he's on Ozempic.
He's on Ozempic.
I think we could just make that clear. He's lost the weight. It does look Ozembic's style weight loss in the sense that there does seem to be some muscle definition that's been lost.
Interesting.
It was tough to kind of make out the silhouette though because of the fit of the suit, which Young Chomsky pointed out on our group chat it was ill-fitting, which I agree.
Bad.
The collar on the shirt was blouse-like.
Also bad.
It was a very confusing collar to me. It was a narrow, it came in like too narrow. It was very weird. And so it had the effect of like making the pink tie stand out and feel more femme than I think they were maybe trying to go for. But he has lost a decent amount of weight.
Yeah. Contrast him to Waltz, who looked not good last night.
Let's talk about Waltz.
Yeah. I mean, Waltz, listen, I don't like seeing an older man uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I work in a brothel. Like he's coming in there and he's shaking and he's jiggly and stuff. Buck up, brother. You're 60, 70, 80 years old?
Yeah, showtime.
50 years old? You were at the founding of the PRC in 1949 or whatever the fuck lie you're telling this time. You know, he's
retconned himself as a Forrest Gumpian.
He
type.
knew Sun Tzu.
He threw the first brick.
He took some of his students to meet Sun Yat-sen in China.
He threw the first brick and took the first brick down in Berlin.
Indeed he did. He was there. He was watching while those Jews crucified Jesus Christ.
Just peering over the bush.
Look at this. By the way, we didn't do that.
Just frowning.
A lot of people
frowning the whole time.
Say we did that.
Frowny mug.
We had nothing to do with that. It was the Italians. It was the fucking Italians. And you can tell why, because shoddy construction job. He got down from that shit pretty much immediately. When they put him in the cave, he just moved that shit away. You know, that's a lazy Italian doing that. No disrespect, much love to the Italians. It's all love to everybody, including Jesus Christ. I thought Waltz seemed like he should have taken a beta blocker, possibly propranolol 80 milligrams before he got on there.
Kamala's camp didn't give him any of her little mommy's little helpers.
They should have got him drunk like her. They should have let her in. They should have let her into the Harris liquor cabinet.
He was shaken in his boots. And could barely get his first answer out. My God. I did have a flashback a little bit. Do you remember when fucking Joe Biden did the debate? How cool that was?
That was so funny.
That was so cool.
That was. I wish.
And I did have like another oh man, this guy's. Is this worse or better than Joe's first answer?
I felt a bit of the Biden about his entire debate performance.
He
warmed up a little bit as it went on, although I don't think he ever really got full wind in his sails. But he has the same sort of difficult. Maybe a bad expression
Nope,
used
keep
there.
it in, keep it in.
But I feel like he has some of the same vocal tics as Biden that make him sound like a fucking idiot. Because what he would do is he would like start a sentence and then he would do like a hard stop in the middle of the sentence and then either continue or switch thoughts. And I'm sorry, I do this too. However, my job is podcast, not doing the debate on JD Vance. And people find it charming when I do it. But he just did not seem very depth. He's a poor public speaker is what I got from last night. Because he just his vocal patterns were just like really it made everything he was saying hard to follow, even if the actual things he was expressing were pretty basic.
Yeah, I think that he actually did a lot better in conversation with Vance. Like when the mods like let him go, which they barely did, and we'll talk about the mods in a second. He found his footing. He faltered a little bit because I think Walz is he's very clearly like a serial exaggerator.
Yeah.
And Vance clearly knew that and then could also like sniff it out in some of his like Walz's poor responses or incomplete responses. And I think you could but I do think that Walz did better with him than he did with the mods. Like he seemed completely incapable of just like straightforward answering a question. And you could see him like searching his mind. And I have like great sympathy for this because I do this all the time because I literally there's times where I feel like I physically cannot see the word that I'm looking for in my brain and I'm like reaching for it. And I could see that on his face on that crazy bulldog mug of his with that, where he like just looked like he was caught in fucking headlights and couldn't find the words and it was like he was also looking for the answers that he had rehearsed with the team and the lines that he was supposed to repeat. So you could see him moving from like, oh, and now I'm going into an anecdote, but I don't want to stick on this anecdote too long because I got a hammer on Trump. And now we're talking about Trump and Trump. And so like never answering the question. And I mean, let's talk about that first immediate question. But I will say that like my reaction to what his response was I do not know what he just said.
Same. So I actually want to just read this entire question out because it is so absurd. This is from what's her name? Margaret? Yeah, Margaret Brennan, who we'll get to her in a second there.
Was that the Pinko or the other one?
Pinko? Oh, I can't. You know what? I don't think they showed us
fuchsia blazer that matched Vance's tie.
You know what? They didn't show us the moderators enough, especially I think they were cutting away from them because one of them was constantly coughing and gulping into the microphone.
Yeah. I think that was the other one. Maybe she had COVID.
Yeah, I think she probably did. Maybe she'll kill both of the fucking VPs, but
also,
no, I don't
it
want it to
wasn't
happen.
Fuchsia. I'm sorry. It was hot pink. It was like Barbie pink, both the tie and the blazer.
This is what Margaret Brennan opened with. I want to keep in mind the context here. This is the first question in the one and only debate between the two vice presidential candidates and, here's the important part, of the United States of America. So that is the country of the USA that we all live in. Everybody on this podcast, everybody on that debate stage. And this is the question. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel. But that attack failed thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. That doesn't seem like it's working too well. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes. I want to mention.
This is such an absurd question on so many levels.
I want to mention Governor Walz's response here. Again, this is the debate for the job of Vice President of America. The same day that this debate happened, yesterday, there was a dock worker strike on the entire East Coast, much of the South. There is Hurricane Helene, whatever. It has ravaged fucking large parts of the country. It is just like there are pressing issues that affect regular, everyday Americans. I'm 34 years old. Iran has never. Why would I care about what Iran does? Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Where did that happen? When was the last time Iran struck a terror target in the U.S., if ever? So he says, let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Iran, or Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. What? I mean,
Well,
I guarantee. So more to what you were saying, I think everything
speaks there.
No, well, the thing is, I think he misspeaks, but not in the. When I first heard that, I thought he was just mixing up Iran and Israel, which he was, but he was clearly mixing up just like two pre-rehearsed lines without any actual like thought behind what he was really saying.
Yeah.
Uh,
I watched that and I was like, damn it. You know, it's bad when you're like, man, Kamala sure she had a command of the stage compared to
Yes.
what you're seeing from this man, this grown man. I mean, rule number one, and you are the fucking master of this, if I do say so, is because you're always spouting this, is you never have to answer the question that you're asked.
never.
You don't have to answer it.
And they did that a few times, but it wasn't in the way that I would recommend doing it. So what they did it a few times, like they would get asked questions, and then for some reason, both of them would just start talking about their childhoods and themselves, which is like that stump speech shit. What you want to do right now is attack your opponent and make him look stupid. Kamala and fucking, well, Trump never does it really. But I mean, he's like sometimes talk about his business life, but only in these kind of vague way. Like he doesn't really talk about specifics, especially in debates. Kamala, give me a break here. She does it like she did it a couple times during the debate, but she mostly stayed away from this. These guys' responses were so difficult to follow because they would spend the first 45 seconds. And Waltz is more guiltier of this than Vance, but Vance did it a bunch too. He's just kind of better at speaking. Talking about, oh, I'm from the Midwest. Look, I'm a hokum dokum yokel or whatever the fuck. Like, I'm just from a good old boy down from the corn farm here to save America. And then they start talking about like immigration or something. And it's just like, all right, cut the crap here. It shocked me that the first question was about Israel. And it was like, how are you not talking about the dock worker strike or about like it's absurd to me.
It was funny because there was like the post debate. I watched it on NBC, and so then they have their like post debate coverage or whatever, and they're like, "Okay, we're going to the undecided room," which is like a room where they keep undecided voters hostage. Apparently,
the Ken Bone zone.
Yeah, the Ken Bone zone. Well, one of the ladies was not Ken Bone-esque, I would say, but they were all from Pennsylvania, and she sat there and they asked her like what she said, and she was like, well, I'm a swing voter, but I'm disappointed that the candidates didn't talk more about, the rising anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Facts.
And they didn't talk about their commitment to Israel. This is where this is how I vote. They didn't say anything about the hostages. I've spent my time here interviewing hostages. I don't know the lady was a plant, but it was completely crazy. And at the same time, totally expected that there's a certain level of Israel like fealty that needs to be like hit on any given national broadcast. And so what I don't understand is why Waltz didn't just say like, we support Israel unconditionally, Iran is a terror state, and then just pivot to whatever the fuck you want to talk about. Like there's nothing else to say. Them's the rules. Like those are the rules. That's what you say and you move on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he makes these sort of like backhanded bellicose threats. Vance does to Iran during it, and obviously they both come to the exact same conclusion,
Yes.
which is
Which
that
is-
we support. We start on a basis of unity, though. That's what we found unity on those points.
But
Liz.
this is what was so funny. And some of it I think is because there's ways in which they're both not very skilled at this, or like a little more raw. Even Vance, like he's very good in that he's like Fox News primed, and so he knows how to be on TV and say the thing. But there's like a lot of instances where he's kind of missing some things. But like throughout their debating on different topics, there were like multiple times they would both arrive at the same conclusion. They would end up just like agreeing on the same thing, whether it was in that instance with Israel and Iran, or whether it was about housing, where they both basically came to the agreement that like there needs to be more housing. Vance agreed with Walz that housing shouldn't be a commodity, which was an interesting like moment. And I don't know if he was confused or he was signaling or what he was doing there. And then they both had, I mean, even their like little spat about they're like, oh, well, there's so many like federal lands that we could build on during their like housing section.
Yeah.
And then they got in a little argument about like, oh, well, there's not that many federal lands in Minnesota and blah, 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 blah. And then Vance is like, well, out west, there's lots of federal lands. And it's like, well, you don't know what a federal land is and climate change and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, annexing and building on part of federal lands is literally in the Democratic platform. Like they both believe the same fucking thing. And so they're arguing this like minutia on the margins to try to differentiate themselves. And you saw it again with immigration.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there was this really good Jeff Stein from the Washington Post had a tweet during the debate where he said, there really just seemed to be a bipartisan consensus that multiple decades of U.S. policymaking stripped the working class bare by sending manufacturing jobs to China, and that some combination of interventionist, industrial, and trade policy is necessary to reverse those wrongs. Economists don't love those solutions, but the political system has been sending that message very clearly. And it's like, you saw that framing, that like narrative framing of like what like caused your American ills, like from both of these candidates, that they basically agree on the same framing of the story. Like there's no alternative anywhere. And even immigration like falls on this. There's like no other narrative to explain the like malaise that's spreading through the country,
Yeah. It's funny. I think because Vance brought up immigration a bunch of times, even when immigration wasn't the issue. I'm talking specifically about the housing question here, where he brought out the ridiculous statistic that maybe it's true, but I highly doubt it, that illegal immigration has brought up housing prices. And I'm sure that is true in some discrete cases, but that is obviously not the major factor in in rent costs and housing prices going through the fucking roof. I mean,
it's like, it's an absurd to say that like if you kicked out all of the illegal immigrants, to say that would have a meaningful impact on housing prices is like an absurd contention.
Yeah, it so obviously is. And I think that he's trying to hammer Waltz on that because it's clear that the Trump campaign is really running with the immigration stuff. And listen, mass deportations are fucking popular right now. They're really popular. I think it's like over half of voters support mass deportations, and that's Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
And so obviously you're going to see the Democrat, they're trying to move away from some of the immigration stuff. It's been obvious for a while. But people are obviously going to see Trump and Vance as much harder and stronger on it. And so that's like a real strength for them to go to. But it was interesting how frequently he kept going back to that well for a little more immigration water.
Yeah. I mean, he even like worked it into the school shooting section, which was kind of amazing. He was like, oh, and the Mexican cartels are bringing in over guns that are shooting up schools. And you're like, that's not happening.
Said that, what? No, it's the opposite. The Mexican cartel guns come from us.
Yeah, it was funny. He was able to get it in like every section. I think the thing on immigration that's interesting too is that like, both parties have to do a very delicate dance because there are certain realities that are like required, like immigration is required to keep our economy going, You know what I mean? Like you can only deport so many people without feeling a big economic impact. I mean, there's this sort of like weird contention from the Republicans that like it's only immigrants that compete for jobs. They don't they don't consume anything, right? Except for housing, which they consume all of. Like there's all these kind of like contradictions there that don't make any sense. And like the reality is that like you can play up certain like a certain deportation machine for certain immigrants while still keeping and maintaining or even raising other types of immigration to keep the economy going, right?
Yeah.
And so there's like it's like a very delicate policy dance that needs to get done, and there's only so much wiggle room that like either of them will have in governing, but the Republicans get to play on way more nativist stuff than the Democrats do, and so it's easy to kind of lean into that. And two, like this has been less remarked on, but I think is like an important part of the story of 2020, which is that like you're seeing a lot of MAGA growth in these like blue urban enclaves where you have like Democrat uniparty like control, or where you see like even if it's not uniparty, like big like Democrat strongholds, whether it's in like Colorado or in New York or in California, where it's more of a like reaction to Democrats rather than like what we saw in 2016 as a kind of like groundswell of, like provincial or downwardly mobile suburban, like, I don't know.
Yokels.
Yeah. Or, whatever. But like, so there's like, in a lot of ways, that seems to be like a big growth area, and also does not portend well when you think about someone like Vance, who's like elite bona fides would play to disaffected Democrat voters in kind of like typical blue areas like that.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. I think that somebody like Vance gives I guess more urban Democrats. I don't know how to say it because that makes it sound like I'm doing like a weird racial thing.
No,
but I mean
like cities,
like city-based Democrats.
Yes. I mean, like San Francisco. Think about it.
Exactly,
like we were just there and talking about all that. It's like how reactionary the city has gotten, and I think that story you see it over and over and over. And immigration is such a huge part of that story. Maybe not in San Francisco, but in places like Denver or in Arizona and in like, cities across the country that are typically these like vote blue no matter who.
And you can see some of the pandering from the Trump campaign in that, with talking about like, I don't know if it's H-1B visas in particular, but like attaching, like still allowing like highly skilled immigrants to come here, which like often that really just means like immigrants for tech jobs.
Yeah.
And immigrants, which is funny because like that actually people are really like crazily competing for those jobs. Like there's a bunch of people who got CS degrees who are like been unable to find jobs for a long time now. And also, as I think as we talked about on the show before, that like tethers these middle class or upper middle class wage earners from different countries to their employers here in a way that I'm sure those employers really like, especially contra the sort of job hopping that's fairly common, or at one point was fairly common in the tech sector. It's just I do think that Vance there is like a darkness there that you don't really see. Like Trump has it kind of clearly has his limits, I think, in terms of growth, rather like in terms of how many people are going to support him. I don't think that those same limits, I think there are limits, but I don't think those same limits are in place for somebody like Vance.
No, I mean, I think he just like, anointed himself the like future of the party. I don't know. I mean, I think there is this part of me that thinks like I don't feel great about the next like 4-8 years, we'll say. And so you could see a version of the future where whoever gets elected has to deal with some like pretty shitty political and economic realities that they can't really get out of. And the losing party might end up being of this election might end up being the kind of long-term beneficiary.
Yeah.
On the other, I mean, but who knows? I mean, there's so much these two like I said, just fucking agree on that. It seems like a lot of shit is like pretty much already written out for both of them.
I also have like no idea how like regular MAGA people see JD Vance. I'm sure they like him, but like I don't look at polls because numbers to me are like a neo-colonialist invention by white saviors. And so I don't really look at them, but I wonder how like widespread Vance without Trump, like his appeal is actually, you know what I mean? Because you got like, look at Blake. People don't like Blake Masters. People like someone like Carrie Lake, you know?
Well,
Not that
but that is like, that's the like lumpen Republican. And I think that like the Heritage Party, Republican Party, Heritage Foundation, Republican Party, like wants to move away from the MyPillowification of the GOP.
Yeah.
That like the MyPillowification of the party has turned it into the fucking, you know, QAnon ARG, like QAnon, like, you know, like
They're
let's
fucking
get a
crackheads.
publicly funded QAnon ARG that they can all just like sort of live in their own little like, yeah, crackheads, little crackhead Truman Show for lizard people. But like, so like they want to win over the upper middle class and middle class voters that they've bled out to the Democrats and the Democrats' big move to the right. And also like they can't deal with the kind of lumpification of the party. There's no future there.
Yeah.
And so if JD can like project himself as like this smooth talking, you know, fascist bureaucrat that he is, there's that potential there, right? So they don't have to like go back into the wells and look for, you know, a charismatic Mitt Romney or a like a more charismatic Mitt Romney. He's not charismatic. Or a kind of like, you know, Brian Kemp as the future of the party or something like that, right? So this offers them maybe a way back into the elite that they feel like they've lost in the like MyPillowification of the party.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. I want to talk a little bit about Waltz's complete fucking nosedive. Shit in the bed, shit in the pants, shit in every which part of clothing you could wear, shit in the adult baby diaper. Or wait, adult. I guess it would just be an adult diaper, huh? Adult baby diaper lover? Why is there a baby in there? Because aren't they? Well, anyway. Well, I guess because they act like babies. But he, like, they call around and stuff. But when he was asked about his, like, it was clear that I'm doing a Tim Waltz here where I'm interrupting myself mid-sentence. But, like, at a certain point in the debate, for the 99% of our listeners who I'm sure made the right choice and did not watch this, at a certain point, the moderators were like, we're going to do a thing. And like, we're going to see if both of you are liars and like ask them questions. Tim Waltz's was about his fabrication of being in China during the Tiananmen Square, the alleged Tiananmen Square massacre, or the incident. And I think it was Vance. They confronted him on perhaps those self-same Twitter DMs that you mentioned earlier. I can't remember, but they confronted him on talking shit about Donald Trump. But it was basically like liar's corner, and they asked fucking Tim Waltz. So he said, "We want to ask you about your leadership qualities, Governor Waltz. You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protest." I'm just quoting her, in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain the discrepancy? You have 2 minutes. And boy,
sweat
he starts
beating off of his face, that big bulldog face.
I thought his head was going to explode. His response is fucking crazy. Well, and to the folks out there who didn't get it at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400. Town you rode into your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher. Passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of 89 to travel to China, 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. I will be the first to tell you that I've poured my heart into my community. I tried to do that the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people. You're talking about bipartisanship?
What?
She asked you if you were in China in June of 1989. Were you in China of June 1989? Working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. Look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear their critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. I wouldn't either. And I guarantee he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. It's about putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. God, that is such politician speak. Letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether through being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about this. Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy? No. All I said is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protest, went in, and from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance. What?
So this is not an example of what we mean when we say you can just answer whatever question you want. To be clear.
No. When someone asks you a direct yes or no, what you have
to do is answer and then say what you want to say.
Exactly. Exactly. Because when you start talking about folks in Nebraska and small town with the lights on, she was asking you about China and about a specific date of a so-called event that might have happened, according to certain sources, about things perhaps there.
It's so funny, too, because during this whole moment, Vance was hitting him with the same look that Trump had given Biden during that first debate, which was a mix of pity and sort of awe in like how bad he was face planting.
Yes. I think so. There's a few things in there that tip the hand or the hat, or they tip something. They tip the listener or the watcher off.
The cow.
I think that this was actually a jumbled practice response to J.D. Vance confronting him on stolen valor.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Because he's talking about the National fucking Guard. He's talking about the fucking GI Bill. He's talking about being a good soldier. Bitch, were you in China?
He did a mashup. He was girl talking his way.
Yes.
To a mashup between his jumbled stolen valor answer and his ties to CCP answer.
Yes.
And what came out made absolute nonsense, much like many of Girl Talk's songs.
So, which I, by the way, never heard. Made it through all the 2000s.
Well, I bet J.D. Vance has.
Well, I bet J.D. Vance has. Yeah, that, and this seemed to be basically his answer to everything. You mentioned earlier that he did a lot better when he was just in conversation with J.D. Vance. But Tim Walz, clearly someone told him, listen, you need to memorize all this shit.
I think it's Kamala's people. He sounded Kamala'd.
He sounded Kamala'd.
He got Kamala'd.
Yeah, they neutered him.
I've been working on my Kamala impression, by the way.
Can you do it? Is that why you've been drinking so much lately?
I feel like, wait, ask me a question. Let's see if I can do it.
Let me see. Hey, miss, what will you be having tonight?
No, like a question that it's like Oprah would ask her. I'm getting inspiration from her Oprah.
What is something in your life that gives you hope?
When I think of hope, I think of what it is that we as Americans put together as we project our faith in each other on the world. And it's in this world when we come together to realize our potential, not just as neighbors, as friends, as family, but our potential as Americans to realize what that potential could become in a future for our children and our children's children together, where we can hope to bring about that realization of our forever future.
Damn, that was pretty good.
I think I still didn't nail it, but I'm really trying to get it.
She is all bun, no patty.
I really feel like I can get this one down.
I think you can. You did pretty good there. I thought you were going to do a voice impression, but you did. The
Absolutely
content.
Not. I don't
the content
do,
was really good.
Whenever I do impressions, since a young age, I never go for the voice. I always go for the content. When I was at camp, there was they were like going to let people go on the ride. There was like a competition, so you go first. And the counselor was like, okay, whoever can do the best Bill Clinton impression gets to go first. And every single stinky little kid was like doing the I did not have sexual relations kind of thing. But me, no. I did we're going to build a bridge to the 21st century.
Wow.
Like the little fucking nerd I was. And who got to go on the ride first?
You got to go on the ride first.
This guy.
Wow. Who nuts on a dress?
Yeah, it is crazy when you think about it.
It's crazy. And then who keeps the dress? That's
the crazy thing.
The whole thing's crazy.
That's, I got some, no one likes to talk about that.
Grab a wet wipe and some vinegar, brother, before she leaves the Oval Office. Good God. Anyways, that's pretty good. I thought Waltz, listen, last night I think he face planted and he's not going to get a second chance. And so I think that I don't know how his only utility to this campaign is to come off like a dad, like a sitcom fucking dad. And I think he blew it.
I think he's probably fine. I think not
totally
that many
fine.
people watched it or cared. I think as long as he didn't, I think that it's he's now neutral. It's a neutral. And people are going to see him on TV and be like, he looks like a cozy bulldog dad from Friday Night Lights or something. And that's fine for me.
Nobody watched this bullshit to begin with. So it's not like I'm sure, I think the only person who had any potential to get something out of this would be Vance.
And I think he did.
I think he did too. But I don't necessarily, it's not with vote. Nobody's fucking deciding who to vote for based on the fucking VP debates.
I genuinely don't know how anyone decides to vote in this country. It is I seriously cannot grasp the mind of the American voter. I think it is impenetrable.
Liz, I don't even get me started. I mean, I've knocked on a lot of doors in my life. I've talked to a lot of voters.
People be thinking things.
I have to believe that people, it's tough sometimes when you talk to people. Because you're just you live in a different, but you all live in this different world. And where do I live then?
I know.
Where do I live?
Well, we've now been through 3 debates. And I think that's it. That's all we
have?
Yes, we got Trump versus Biden.
Oh, yeah.
We got Trump versus Kamala.
That ruled. Yeah.
And then we had JD versus Walz. And
there's not going to be another one, is there?
I don't think so. I wish, but I don't think so. I don't think Trump is doing better the less on-camera action he gets.
Yeah. God, what if he wins?
I mean, that's very possible.
I'm going to say that this, from people I've talked to, I've taken a small survey of people that I know. The general consensus is that they're not voting for Mademoiselle Harris. But they said the preferable outcome would be Harris winning over Trump, not for any political reasons whatsoever, but it's because they just don't want to deal with 4 more years of Trump.
I do think that is a lot of people in my weird.
I'm amenable to that.
My weird middle class enclave that I'm in. People seem very we've talked about this before, just very sick of politics.
Yeah.
And I do think that something different about this time is that if Trump wins, I kind of have a hard time seeing the liberal middle class getting it up again.
Yeah.
Like I don't see the pussy hats coming back out of that closet, you
Oh,
know?
I've got one on.
Like it's hard for me to see that kind of energy outside of the op-ed pages and the internet can do a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's difficult to see where I could see a lot of people really still kind of sticking to their guns about wanting to check out of politics. Like I think that's what a lot of people are voting for when they're voting for Kamala is it is that kind of like let's get back to brunch sort of thing while not really saying that. But I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, you know, a lot could change.
I'm still undecided.
Yeah.
I don't know who to vote for.
These debates didn't change your mind.
The debates didn't change my mind. I need more personal appeals, and I just want to see like two things I want to know. I want to know what Kamala smells like.
Interesting.
And I want to see her gun.
I have two guesses.
Okay, bring them out.
Vanilla?
Yeah.
I could see a vanilla perfume, which I don't feel great about.
Not like saffron? Is that a color or a smell?
Both.
Crazy.
Or I'm going to say jasmine.
Like salmon. Jasmine. Okay. Oh, because she's South Asian?
No, jasmine like the flower.
I know, but don't you associate that with
No, I don't. Very different.
The bazaar? Well,
no,
maybe
it's
that's
kind
just
of more
me.
of an English flower.
Yeah, but they loved going to South Asia. That was their whole thing.
You mean Indra?
India. Wow. I'm to become a satrap. Have you heard the news?
You know, I've decided. I know who I'm voting for.
Who?
I'm not telling you.
Oh, well, I have no fucking idea who to vote for.
You could write in Joe Biden.
I could do that.
Someone's got to vote for him.
I could.
How
do
many
that.
votes
Someone's
do you
gonna
think
vote
he's
for
going to
me.
get?
How about this? I'll sell my vote. Anybody out there? You got enough money? I'll
Hey.
put my vote on the line.
The Atlantic wants us to sell organs. Let's start with votes.
The Atlantic wants to sell organs.
Ugh, this is what I'm saying. Everyone's lost. Yeah, there's
They should talk to the Falun Gong about that.
yeah.
They should go into
They
business
had a
with
whole
them.
thing that was like, so many people die because we don't have, what did they call it? Oh, because of uncompensated
Oh, yeah. Because they're like, it's a
kidney
donation-based
donations.
system.
And they're like,
yeah.
if we had a compensated, that's what they use. Imagine if you could be compensated for your donation.
The
You're like,
ethical
there's another
pitfalls-
word of that.
I'm sure they talk about them and say that they're troubling or whatever, or difficult to get around in the article. But like the ethical questions around selling an organ versus donating an organ are insane. And
You'd
so
think.
they should just they should compensate you in a non-monetary way. Like you get to go on like a fucking, like
You get to be president for one day.
meetup. Yeah. You get to like a cool medal or something, or like,
You know how Trump was like, we should have the purge,
yeah,
which is crazy.
we
that he
should
said
have the
that.
purge.
Fucking child brain. They should let one person be. They should have a lottery, and that person gets to be president for one day.
Yeah.
And let's just see what happens.
Well, they did that. So in San Francisco, that actually kind of did happen once. So there used to be this thing where when the mayor was out of town, various supervisors, there would be like a rotating you're the mayor technically, but it's like a ceremonial position. You're not actually supposed to do anything. And Matt Gonzalez was the
I'm nodding.
the Green Party candidate, eventual almost winner of the mayoral election.
Yeah.
Matt Gonzalez was a member of the Green Party and was mayor for like a few days while Willie Brown was in Hawaii, probably cheating on to whoever, maybe cheating on Kamala Harris. And he like appointed a bunch of people to commissions, and Willie Brown like cut his vacation short and came back, and there's been no ceremonial mayors ever since. But I like that. I like a little palace coup like that.
Yeah, just for temporary,
For
just for one
tempies.
day, and we could call it like Richie Rich Day,
Mhm.
and you get to be Richie Rich for the day in the White House, and you get to do whatever you want, and they have to treat you like the president because you're the president just for one day.
For one day.
And imagine what you could do. You could do so much, or you find out you could do nothing because you're not actually in charge.
Well,
Either
no,
way, it'd
I'm,
be
I'm
interesting.
nuking first thing. I'm hitting the button, not even looking to where they're aimed. I'm hitting the button. You know what they should do? They should let one person. They should make one person be. You know the guy that carries the nuclear briefcase around?
Does
like
that still really
handcuffed to him?
happen?
I think so. Yeah. They should make the nuclear football guy. They should like draft you for that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like they pick you and you have to do it. That's right. I think more people should be drafted for basically everything, but people aren't ready for that. I want to remind our listeners once again, I am in favor of a military draft in this country
Yeah.
for reasons that I've outlined several times on this show.
Well, we got to get ready.
I'm ready. Well, no, I'm too old. I'm too old as of 2 weeks from now.
No, but now the next movement is to extend the draft.
Oh, they're gonna make it like Ukraine.
Yeah.
we got Unk in here. They drafted all the Unks. Could you imagine if they drafted every Unk in the country? Where would we receive wisdom from?
Here we go.
But think of the concentrated power of the wisdom they would assemble.
The future of this country is not bright.
No, it is not. We should go to early voting and try to steal some ballots.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either. Trump's going back to that spot he got smoked in. Well, he
I
didn't
thought
get
he already
smoked.
did.
No, I think he might have. No, I don't think he
But
did.
he just like keeps returning
To Butler?
to the scene of the crime.
Yeah. What's up with that? Will they release a dossier on that kid or anything?
I feel like no, but I still think there's still some investigations going on from what I was reading.
I mean, that was bizarre.
Yeah, a lot of
And we didn't even
questions
cover
there.
this in the show because we didn't find a place to cover it. But how about the second Trump shooter's Ryan Ruth's son
Oh my god.
getting busted for child porn?
Oren.
I know Orrin Ruth, dude. And you know that the feds came to his house like the second after his fucking dad got arrested. They got his ID. The feds fucking went to that house, took all his electronics, and he was probably like, actually, can you wait a second? Can you? He might have deleted it, and they like got it out of the trash or whatever. He didn't
Imagine how much he hates his dad now.
dude, so much. He had like 1,000 images of child porn. This is the
prolific.
child porn. See, wow. That is, what a disgrace. Maybe they'll be in the same prison. Good God. I know. Oren. You shouldn't be naming a kid something like that. I was supposed to be named Lulu.
What? That's not true.
If I was a girl, I
if you
swear
were
to
a girl.
God. Yeah, not, no, I was always Brace since the day I was born. But if I was a chick, they would have named me Lulu.
Is that
Could you
short
imagine
for Luann?
Is that what it's short
You
for?
would have
I
been
would say so.
Luann Belden.
Lucy,
I was
maybe?
calling you
Maybe
Luann
Lucy?
Brace.
Luann Brace Belden? You think I could
I
do
think
another
that's
name?
nice for you. I do kind of like a Helen.
You think I could be Helen?
Helen Belden.
Helen Belden is pretty good.
It's so awkward because you want it to rhyme, but it doesn't.
Yeah, you really do.
Helen Belden.
I would think if I was a chick, I'd like to be named Shasta
You could.
or what's
I
that
feel like
other
Shasta
one?
is not gendered because of the soda.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that Shasta's a girl's name.
But Shasta soda is definitely male coded.
You think so? I think of it as my coding actually comes directly from my experience. It's the soda my neighbors always had, and I'd hang out with their son and drink Shasta.
See?
I loved that Shasta though. Was it Safeway brand cola? No, it wasn't. It was its own thing. I still see it around sometimes.
We're really getting some good content.
Well, we're already passing out.
I don't
Actually,
care. You
I
know what I
know,
got
I know.
right here?
What do you got?
I got a bay leaf that I took from California and it smells so fucking good.
What does happen to you if you eat those?
What do you mean?
So I was always told that if you eat a bay leaf, you die.
No. I cook with them all the time. What are you talking about?
I know, but you pick them out of the fucking curry or whatever.
I don't think you die.
Try it.
No, I don't want to.
Because part of you knows that you might. You know what I ate while watching the debate last night?
Duck.
Duck. I couldn't get anybody to watch it with me.
Is it because of the duck?
No, the duck was delicious. I couldn't get anybody to.
Was everyone like no, I'm not watching that?
Everybody was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
See? These people don't care about democracy.
These people don't care about democracy. I know. Which is good because I think I freaked a lot of people out because of the way I like touched my body last time when the debate was going. Because people know I goon. And so, but Goonin's kind of out of the zeitgeist now.
That's good.
Is that real? It is real. Everything's
know.
fucking real.
I think
the
everything
problem.
is real.
That's the most, everything is real.
Oh shit! I just got that.
Yeah.
Damn.
All right.
I'm Liz.
My name is Brace. We're, of course, joined by producer Young Chomsky, and the podcast is called TrueAnon.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
That's for sure.